My people, it's me again, Rebel, bigging up Says World TV. Best interviews from Moulton and CP. Big up Says World TV. You don't know, Rebel says so.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Strictly Vinci. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel if you like our contents. Today we have a very special guest. Yes, Dr. Richard Byron-Cox. He is specialized in international law and he is also a lecturer and a professor.
And he would say, there's always a reason why people do things. Ask yourself, why is he doing this? Is it because he's lost his mind? Is it because he's angry and upset with somebody? Is it because he doesn't know better? But why? And I'll tell you something else about Conrad that will move you. But when I came back home with my PhD, I went to his house and I sat at his feet and I said, listen to me, Cesar. I did not do this for me first and foremost. I did this for you. It is what Conrad Sayers had taught me. Shadow, football is first played with your head. You think before anything else. Everybody might be concerned with my flaws. I must be concerned with my essence. Everybody thought I had AIDS because I was starving to death.
We have with us this afternoon a very interested Vincentian, Dr. Richard Byron-Cox, someone who has a lot of alligators behind his name. Welcome to the program, Dr. Cox.
Good afternoon to you and to your listeners. Good afternoon to Mr. Sayers. So, Mr. Sayers, I want to say it's good to see you. Are you related to Conrad Sayers by any way, shape, or form?
Yes, that's my uncle. Yeah.
I don't believe this. I do
Yes.
not believe this. No, listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. Now I have goose pimples on my skin. This, Mr. Sayers, this is not a joke.
Okay.
I probably would release the secret today. I have a secret of the year to release.
Wow.
But Conrad Sayers, I used to call him Caesar. And if you follow his funeral, you would have seen. If you had followed his funeral, you would have seen that I was one of NBC's and API major commentator throughout his entire funeral.
I was at the funeral.
Right, and I actually spoke at his funeral. As a matter of fact,
I spoke at his funeral too.
Most people will say that I was Conrad's first child.
Wow.
Long before Ali and Mikey and everybody else.
Okay.
Conrad has the greatest influence on my life for any human being.
Wow.
The greatest influence on my life. Now, before I say anything else, Mr. Says, let me say three things which are very, very important in my mind. Firstly, I'm very honored to be here. I'm extremely honored to be part of your program. I feel very special and very blessed to have been invited to be part of your program. That's one. Two, Mr. Burke almost killed me earlier, because we began the conversation and I was saying to Mr. Burke that there is this Calypsonian singer, the Mighty Leader, who I love very, very much. Leader's greatest song is a song called First Time. But I was talking about another song where he says, the hook line of the song is, and regardless of where we roam, I want you to remember that St. Vincent is our home. And I was saying this to Mr. Burke, and Mr. Burke just looked at me and started to laugh and laugh. And I was wondering, why is this man laughing at me? I'm talking deadly serious, and he's laughing. Only for him to announce, this man is my relative, and his name is Selwyn Burke. This is no joke. I'm deadly serious. And now here I always wanted to ask you, are you related to Conrad Sayers? Only for you to tell me that Conrad is your uncle. So here I am now embarrassing myself. Man. So those are the three things I wanted to say. I'm tremendously honored to be here. So I'm at your service, sir.
All right. Just want to say, give a shout out to Radio Land, wherever you are in the world listening. Today we have a very, very very special guest. And he's from the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, representing St. Vincent and the Grenadines all over the world. He's a renowned author. He is a multilingual speaker, a lecturer at universities all over the world. Later on, we're going to dive into, you'll be amazed of some of the universities that he has delivered lectures to. And he's also international diplomat, very prolific in international law. And we're talking no other than Dr. Byron-Cox. Dr. Cox, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. As I said earlier, I'm very honored to be here. I'm honored to be speaking to you. And somehow or the other, I'm connected to both of you and not knowing it, because Leader was really, really a great Calypsonian, believe you me. And when he sang first time, Mr. Burke, your uncle actually won. That year he won. And he was treated out of that crown, but he won. He definitely won. And Conrad says, your uncle, Mr. Sayers, as I said earlier, is the greatest influence ever on my life. No human being has influenced me more. I met Conrad. I was an 11-year-old boy. I had just entered high school when I met Conrad, and he changed my life. A matter of fact, when I got my PhD, I went home and I sat at his feet and I said, I did this. If there's any one human being I did this for, it was for you. And that's the truth.
Wow.
That's the truth.
Wow.
If there's any one human being I did this for, I did this for you.
Wow. There was nothing but praise at his funeral, and God bless his soul. I didn't get a chance to really know that he was responsible for the education revolution. That's what the Prime Minister said there, that he was the one who was responsible for all the changes and stuff like that. But we will talk much about it off here.
Yes.
Now that we're closely connected, we'll definitely stay in touch, because we might need you one day for one of those lectures here in Canada. So I just want to say again, we're happy to have you, because here on this program we highlight, Vincentians who are representing the country in whatever shape or form. And our program is geared towards educating and help to motivate, others, so that, we can have, better understanding of where, or others can have better understanding of where they're going and how people get to where they're at and stuff like that. It's not so much about the views will come, and we keep it in our archives just for people so they can go back and look in our YouTube, and you can, read about people or listen about their stories and stuff like that. So we always say, big up yourself, which is really a different word for your level. So we say, size up yourself for greatness.
Yes.
Size up yourself. And we always say, take us back to your humble beginning, because our program is about 2 hours, So I think you're a lecturer, you like to talk, and we like to talk, and we like to listen. So we have time. We dive into your story from a childhood days and stuff like that, and tell us about your upbringing from way back where you're from and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was born Byron-Cox, in that my mother, her name was Ada Byron-Cox. Before she was married, her name was Ada John. And so she was from a place that we know in St. Vincent, sometimes called Bottom Towns. In those days, it was called Rose Place. And she was born in Rose Place. Now, interestingly, her father, his name was Otto John, and he worked in the legal system in St. Vincent, and incidentally was a very close friend of the first Prime Minister of St. Vincent, Milton Cato. Now, what happened is that I have a very strange story, and I don't, 2 hours is not enough to tell it. But to say this, that as a very small child, I did not grow up with my family, with the people who I belong to biologically. Most of my life, my young life, was not spent with them. The reasons for this are many, but the fundamental reason, But the fundamental reason I still haven't worked out yet, right? It is said that I wasn't born in St. Vincent. Most people don't know this. I wasn't born there. And when I was brought home, and it was decided that I should be given away from my family, my grandmother, whose name was Miriam John, she took me on her lap, and she was a Salvation Army person. You know, when the Salvation Army celebrated, I think it was their 100th year of anniversary in St. Vincent, they honored 10 people, 5 women and 5 men. And the first of the 5 women was my grandmother, Miriam John. So Miriam, who was probably 80% Carib woman, I don't know, 60% Carib woman, but she was a Carib woman and so on. She took me on her lap and she said to God, because she believed in God, she was a very, very religious woman, and she put me on her lap and said, God, I don't want anything at all. I'm just your servant. But if you were to ever bless me, give it to this boy, you know, to this child. And that was that. I grew up never knowing my grandmother. She died. And and the most I heard of my grandmother at that time is the day she died. The people I lived with. The lady called me and she said, you must listen to this this death announcement which came over on the radio on that day. And she said, and I said, why? And she said, listen. And I listened and said, and so what's this about? And she said, that's your grandmother. And I said, what? And she said, yes. I said, well, they never wanted anything to do with me when I was a child, so I don't care. And she just quietly said she was a very good woman, you know. And so throughout my life as a little boy, I always I always knew that I had only me. Somehow or the other, I knew that. Then somehow or the other, that came to me very early as a boy, that you only have you. You don't have anything else. And because um, I my right arm was damaged and my right leg when as a child. And in those days in St. Vincent, when you were a child with a disability, you you didn't want to be that. To be honest with you, you were called all kinds of names. Everybody scorned you, spat on you, beat you up, whatever. So all my primary school years, I was really badly treated. I was so badly treated that some other school children, when they saw this, they would stand up and say, no, you can't do him that. That's too much. You know what I mean? So I had all of that to deal with. And but somehow or the other, that that thing I think influenced me greatly, you know. And so as a little boy, I because of my disability as well, I couldn't do what other boys did. In other words, I wasn't good at football. I wasn't good at cricket. I wasn't good at any of those things, you know. And I grew up in such a way where I was not allowed to do what other boys did, like pitch marbles and so on. That wasn't for me somehow or the other, you know. So I had no world, as I would put it. I had no world at all. I just didn't have a world. And I grew up basically without friends. You know, I had in primary school, I didn't really have friends, you know, and things like that. So I don't tell you all of this to tell you anything that to make anybody sad or anything of that sort. It's just that you said I should say something about where I came from. And secondly, this would lead us into um, many things later on in my life. And I have to set that backdrop, that background, so that you would understand what is happening here. And so, um, I, as a little boy, one time, I don't know if you should know what's a coal pot, right? You know what's a coal pot, right? And one day I there was a coal pot. It was lighted and it was on a stoplight. And I passed by and knocked it over, and I was a little child, and it fell on my back and burned out the whole of my back. And if you look carefully, even to this day, there's a little slight mark on the right side of my back from this. And in those days, they had a place called Kansai, which was the Canadian Save the Children Fund. I don't know if you ever heard of Can Save. And everybody thought I was going to die, because this thing burned my back out completely. And everybody thought I was going to die. So even now, the people I live with didn't really, well, it was too much for them. And so I ended up in the care of Can Save. This is all true, I'm not making up a story here. And most people don't know this about me, So people look at me now, this doctor and all that other stuff, and he's a privileged boy, and he has a Byron-Cox name, and and he does all this stuff. But the road, as Butcher Banton said, it's not an easy road. You see the glamour and the glitter, and you think it's a bed of roses, but it's not a bed of roses. So this is something I remember. I was a very small child. And then I went to primary school. I was about 8 years old when I went to primary school. And the reason for this is that nobody could track down my birth certificate. And in those days, you had to have your birth certificate to go to school. And so nobody could track it down. Nobody knew where I was born. Nobody really was sure about anything. You understand? Nobody knew. And there was a woman named Miss Peters. She lived in a place. You know what is Block 2000? Have you ever? Because you should know what is Block 2000. She used to live right on Block 2000, And she decided, okay, this child needs an education regardless. And so they took me into school without knowing anything about, me and so on, and no birth certificate or anything of that sort, right? But before that happened, something happened to me when I was about just before I went to primary school. And I think that is when I first realized that if I had anything, it had to be my head. I couldn't play sports because, as I said, I was a crippled boy and I was called all sorts of names, and it was a nightmare, basically, right? And so I did not have that. I couldn't play cards or dominoes. To this day, I can't play dominoes. I don't know anything about those things. So the things that boys did and you got praised for, and so I couldn't do. I couldn't swim and all that kind of stuff, right? That was my thing. And Victoria Park, Victoria Park, they used to have religious meetings in that place. Your uncle even performed there, Mr. Buck. Your uncle performed there. Your uncle Selwyn. Mr. Buck, are you hearing any of this? I hope I'm not embarrassing you for saying this, but the truth.
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
And he performed there. So I went to the park one night and they had this crusade, some kind of crusade, and so on. And the preacher sounded real boring to me, It's like this thing is nonsense. So what happened to me was this: that I walked away and walked down to the bottom of the park, and I lay down on the grass. And I looked up at the sky and I saw all these stars, all these beautiful stars. And I was like, wow, this is an amazing thing. And something clicked in my head. Something clicked. I do not know what it is, but something clicked in my head that said to me, look, you don't understand this Jesus business too much and what this man is talking about up there. But somehow or the other, you're in communication with this universe. And I think that's where somehow I realized that intellectually, there was something different about me. I didn't know what it was. And then comes your uncle. And Conrad says, his wife name was Marjorie Says. And they got married and then came to Redemption Shops to live where I lived. And in those days, he had no car. He had a bike, a red Suzuki bike. You understand? And you have an uncle, his youngest brother, his name is Anthony. We used to call him Jiggy. You understand? No, I'm telling you this because all of what I'm saying is absolute truth. I'm not lying to you in any way. It's absolute truth. And so, but somehow or the other, Conrad came close to me. Something happened there which I cannot explain. And I think Conrad figured out that I was going to do all of this. I don't know, somehow. And I'll tell you a little bit later about that. But let me just say this now. And I was about 10. I had just gone to high school, so I would have been 11 when I met Conway Sayers. And he taught me he needed somebody to play chess, and there was nobody. And he taught me how to play chess. It's the only game I can play up to this day. I cannot play drafts. I cannot play dominoes. I can't play cards. Believe it or not, I can't do any of these things. I don't know how to do any of these things. I don't know how to do any of these things, you know? And he taught me how to play chess. And then he taught me the rules of football. I learned that from Conrad Science, you know? And somehow or the other, he kind of figured out. I don't know how he figured this thing out because he was a teacher. Conrad Says did a lot for Redemption Shops. The park that we have there now is thanks to Conrad Says, right? Conrad Says started the first adult education in Redemption Shops. Nobody, the majority of grown people couldn't read and write. He taught them how to read and write. And that is a fact. You understand? That is a fact. I know no one here can challenge me on these things. I'm telling you what the truth is. But somehow, I don't want to say I was special to him because I don't think I was. But somehow or the other, he probably felt I needed that guidance. He probably felt that this is a soul I can save somehow or the other, you know? And that's the truth. I tell you the honest truth, that's the truth. He just, felt that I think he felt there's this soul he should save, you know? And so, apart from teaching me chess and teaching me the rules of the game of football, he then started to introduce me to serious readings, readings that an 11, 12-year-old boy should not read. So I read Future Shock by Alvin Toffler, thanks to Conrad Sayers. This is a sociologist. At that time, he was America's greatest sociologist, right? I read Third Wave by Alvin Toffler, and I was only 13, 14 years old. I read Francis Bacon, and I was only 13, 14 years old. You understand? And I read Martin Luther King Jr., Strength to Love, and I was only about a 14-year-old boy.
So, how much of that reading, though, you think contributed to the man you are today as an author?
Well, as an author, I'm not sure, but as an intellect,
Mm-hmm.
without that, I would not have become the intellect that I am. As an author, I think, and we'll come to that later, but as an author, I think what happened is that my childhood, the life I lived, and the pain I felt is what
Mm.
made me a writer. I think that is what made me a writer. The pain I felt, the childhood I lived, I think that made me a writer, right? And that is why most people cannot figure out what style I have. There's no writer that you can compare me to because I write like no one. I don't write like Shakespeare. I don't write like Dickens. I don't write like Roger Myers. I don't write like Michael Anthony. I don't write like anybody. I write just like me. I don't write like V.S. Paul. I write just like Richard, only like Richard. You see, Richard Byron-Cox. And so I don't think that that really contributed to my writing per se, but my intellect. Because by the time I got to university, I went to university when I was very young. Well, not very young, but in my early 20s, you understand. I think I celebrated my 21st birthday at university. So, and when I got there, the teachers all thought I had a master's degree. You know? No, seriously, I'm not joking. The teachers all thought this boy has come here with a master's degree. And all of this is thanks to Conrad Says. But to go back before that, um, I as I said at 8 years old, somehow or the other, I saw the universe differently. Something was wrong, you know. And I remember leaving the park that night and thinking I'm crazy, that I've lost my mind, you know. And from that day I became close to the world. I realized I couldn't say what I truly believe. I couldn't say what I understood because somehow or the other it made people laugh at me because I looked stupid, you know? And so I became a prisoner of my own mind,
Mm.
a prisoner of the things I knew and the things I can explain, you know? And Conrad was responsible for that because for example, we would be he used to play for Annisville United, a football team. And I would go to every match with him on this bike. And we would go somewhere and I would see somebody doing something strange. And I would say, oh, Billy, that's really stupid. And you know what he would say? He said, you're right, but you're not asking the right question. And I would say, what do you mean? And he would say, there's always a reason why people do things. Ask yourself, why is he doing this? Is it because he's lost his mind? Is it because he's angry and upset with somebody? Is it because he doesn't know better? But why? Why is he doing it? And I think that fundamental question of why is what twisted something in my head, twisted something in my head, you know? And so I those years of my life, I think what is important is, as Conrad says, I think he, more than anything else. And by the time we come to the end of this interview, you would see what I'm telling you about Conrad is not a joke. I truly mean everything I say.
I'm saying that I'm happy I didn't know all this information before, because like folks listening would think that it was planned, right?
No, no,
Uh,
no.
right.
True.
So let me ask you something, like in your growing up days though. You came to St. Vincent at what age?
Well, as far as I was told, because I was a very small boy, I arrived in since I was 2.5 years old. Based on what, based on all the information I've gotten, I was 2.5 years old and I arrived home to St. Vincent. My mom is a Vincentian, as I said before. She was born in Rose Place. So but I was 2.5 years old. In those years, I must say, St. Vincent for me was a beautiful place. St. Vincent is not beautiful anymore,
Mm,
the way it was. In the days of Leader, in the days of Conrad Sayers and so on. And I was very fortunate. I was very fortunate because I lived in Kingston, but I was able to go to the country, you know, where quite quite a lot of my work, my literature work now is set. It's set in the country. And
mhm.
I had the privilege of doing that. And you know, I dig Jabakuyam and moonshine and all them things. And you know, I went with the boys, and they catch macaque and sucker in the river and so on. And we used to clean them and fry them and eat them, and we shot ground dove and all these things as well. And I ate all of those things, and so I had a fantastic childhood in terms of that. All of the plum rolls and mangoes and all of that sort of stuff, you
So,
know.
sound like you grew up in South Rivers there around there.
No, actually, I grew up in Kingston. I am Kingstonian. I'm a Kingstonian in every sense of the
But you
word.
spent some time in South
But
Rivers.
I
Okay.
spent a lot of time, especially in the Leeward Coast, in a place called Spring Village,
Okay.
and it was beautiful. I mean, I remember it with so much joy. And I'm speaking to you from my home in Germany, and my home is in the country here. You know, it's green, it's quiet, and I have apple outside, and I have nut tree and things like that outside. And this is because of my childhood. You know, this is because of that beauty of Spring Village. I love Spring Village. It's not beautiful anymore. But outside of that, what I wanted to say about Vincent, my childhood, which I think is important, is this: that there was this naivety, this innocence about St. Vincent, you know, this innocence, this beauty that our country held. And I know things have got to change, but somehow or the other, it bleeds my heart when I look at it now, you know. I remember. I tell you the secret, and please keep it a secret. Don't let anybody know what I'm going to tell you, right? But when I was a boy, and in the summer, sometimes I went down to Beckway, and there was this friend of mine, McCarthy Phillips. God bless his soul. I hope his sister is listening, Marilyn, because we grew up together. And we used to go to the back of Beckway and we'd get all these half ripe papaya and things like that, as we call them papoy in St. Vincent, papaya. And we would beat them up on the rocks, and then carry them and sell them to the tourists as right. I mean, I have no shame. I honestly have no shame of telling this story because I was a boy, you know. So you will have to forgive me. But we used to go and beat up these papaya on the stones and so on, and sell them to tourists, on the coast in Beckway, and that's the truth. So it was really great fun when I was a little boy, as a child. Now, I went on to secondary school, and at that time, to be honest with you, it's a sad thing, and um, I hope that whoever young person is listening to me, or whoever doubt him or herself who's listening to me during this program will remember this. Because of the way I grew up, I had so many doubts in myself. I did not believe in myself, and that's a very, very sad thing, especially when you're young. You have to learn to believe in yourself.
True.
And this affected my performance in everything I did. I always felt I couldn't do it. I always felt I was going to be judged, and I was going to be judged terribly. I don't say any of this because I want anybody to be sorry for me. That's nonsense. I am Dr. Byron Cox, for God's sake. I am Professor Byron Cox. I don't need anybody to be sorry for me. I'm telling a story so that people would know this, and so that I can serve as an inspiration for their aspiration, because that's the greatest thing Conrad did for me.
Mhm.
He was the inspiration that served to be my aspiration. Because he inspired me, I aspired. Do you understand?
Mhm.
And this is what is important here to understand. Not for you to think that, oh, I need for you to be sorry. No, I don't need anybody to be sorry for me. For God's sake, come on. You
Why?
understand?
Why though were you afraid to be judged? What was the fear?
Well, I mean, as I said, when you were a crippled boy, because I was called on some name, crippled, finny, invalid, you name whatever name you could think about,
Mhm.
was given to me. And when you live that kind of life, for example, I mean, years ago I went to Brazil, and I was invited to the governor of Recife's house, and he had a very beautiful daughter. And as I arrived and so on, and said, this is Professor Byron-Cox, and so on, and said, good afternoon, and so on. And after dinner, his daughter came up and said, you can sing, right? And I said, how do you know that? She said, just the way you speak. The baritone of your voice, you must be a great singer.
Yeah.
And come, let's sing something, come. And I said, can you play easy? And she said, by Lionel Richie. I said, yes. You know? And everybody said, so why the hell are you a lawyer? You were born to sing.
Wow.
Just the way you speak, the voice that you have, anybody would know that you can sing. And I just quietly said, because when you came from where I came from, you don't learn to sing. The first thing you know is how to cry.
Mhm.
See, when you came from where I came from, you don't learn to sing. The first thing you know is how
How
to.
to cry. Oh, sip.
You see. So I say this not for anybody to be sorry for me and stuff like that. There's no need for that. I'm a rock star basically, so there's no need for that. You know. Rather, I'm saying this to say what I told you about your uncle. He was the inspiration that led to my aspiration. That's why I'm saying.
Let me say this before CP comes in. I never got to interview him, so I'm glad you're reliving his legacy through your life.
Yes,
So
yes. And as
thanks.
I said, as I told you, when I came back home with my PhD, and I'll tell you something else about Conrad that will move you. But when I came back home with my PhD, I went to his house and I sat at his feet and I said, listen to me, Cesar. I did not do this for me first and foremost. I did this for you. I began as a teacher very early age. I was probably 18 years old. And teaching, well, there's several things here. Firstly, um, I think my childhood, as I said, has affected me so much that I cared. I truly cared. And everybody who I taught, without exception, everybody would tell you that you would always see it, even for this program, right? Even for this program. When I put it up on Facebook, many commented the best teacher in the world, you know? And the reason for this is because of my childhood. Now, when I taught at the school, I'm going to tell you a story. And Jules Williams or Willis Williams, they play for Touch. They used to play for Touch. Their mother was a head teacher. Her name was Grace Williams. She's still alive. And when I started to teach at Lord Village, there was a man, I wouldn't call his name because he's dead. He's not here to represent himself. And when the bell rang after recess, he was the head teacher. He would just start to take belt and start to beat the children like crazy. Crazy. When you're supposed to give them time to get back to their class. And when I saw this twice or three times, I had had enough. And I said, listen to me. Let me tell you something. You don't dare hit any child in my class, or we're going to have a fight here. Because you are advantaging people's children, and that is not right. You have to give them, when the bell ring, you give them a 2 minutes to get to their class. I can understand if it's 5 minutes and they're playing the fool. You understand? But this thing has got to stop. And this guy couldn't believe what I told him. I said, listen to me, I'm not afraid of anybody. And that's the second thing I think is important here in my life, apart from my childhood, is that I was always a rebel. I'd always rebel, you know? And he just couldn't believe. And I said, listen, I am not joking. Do not do this. Give the children a chance to get into their class. And a week later or so, he comes into my class and I'm with my children. And he said, do you know who is above you here? I said, excuse me? He said, do you know who's above you here? I said, I think you have this thing wrong, I think you should ask me what is above me. And what is above me is the roof. You understand? Not the roof. But what I think you misunderstand this thing. And that got him really, really mad. And he said, and I said, listen to me. As a matter of fact, get out of the class because you're obstructing my lesson. This is the head teacher we're talking about, I'm not joking. I've always been a rebel, and I think I'll die that way. Anyway, he refused, and I told the class, hey, get up and tell him to get out. The whole class got up and said, get out of the class. I swear to you. I swear. And I can call names. One of St. Vincent's most famous footballer, note the word I use, famous footballer, will testify to this man. I'm not joking. So they called me up at the Ministry of Education and they said, and they give me a long, long lecture, right, about how they should fire me. I said, so what is this lecture about? If you have to fire me, fire me. There's nothing to say about it. I don't know what made me like that or what makes me like that because I'm still like that. But the one thing I hate more than anything else, I don't hate people. I have no hate for people. I have 4 hates. And I can tell you what they are. But the one that I hate most is injustice. I would fight it until I am dead. I do not like injustice.
Mhm.
I think that comes from my my childhood. So I said, listen to me. Look, I don't care what you all want to do. And so they transferred me to Lowmansley with Anglican School. And that is when I met Jules and Willis Williams. You played a lot of Touch songs earlier, Mr. Burke. You played it today, and I was having a good time while we were waiting for the program to begin, you know? And they sent her a long letter and how he was rude and insubordinate and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, I she she put my class right next to her office. So I know what this is checking on me and so on. I am not scared. I'm not worried. I don't care. I'm ready to leave. I don't have any children. I'm not married. I'm a young man. You know, I can do whatever. Right? Courage is what I had. And after about a week, one day I saw this woman just walk into my class and sat down at the back of my class. And I said, well, oh, so she wants to intimidate me. Okay, fine. I don't care. I can just continue my lesson. I swear to you. I swear to you. A few weeks later, she called me and she said, Mr. Mr. Byron-Cox, what really happened at Lord Village? What really happened? And I told her the truth. I said he was taking advantage of people's children, and I couldn't allow it. And I will never allow it. When I left and went and came to university in Europe, there was a head teachers conference, and that head teacher was there along with Mrs. Williams. And she got up and she told that head teachers conference, a young man named Richard Byron-Cox was sent from Lodge Village to my school, Norman's Level Anglican. And they said all sorts of bad things about him. In my 33 years as a teacher, he's the best teacher I've ever met. You hear me? I swear to you, she's a living woman today. She's not dead yet. She said they wrote me a long note about this young man. He's now at university pursuing degrees or whatever. And in my 33 years of teaching, I have never been a better teacher. He's concerned. He's truly concerned about his children. And because he was concerned and wanted justice for them, you know, he was made into a pariah and a rebel and all these things. And she wrote me a long letter about it all. You see, so my teaching career taught me many things, but I'm going to tell you a story. You know, you remember I told you that one person who would testify to what happened at Lodge Village, right, became a famous footballer. And I told you to note the word famous. You would figure it out. I wouldn't tell you who he is. You'd figure it out.
CP would.
You will figure it out.
He's a big footballer.
Right? And
Is the last name Joseph?
no, I didn't. Yes. Oh, so you got it. You worked it out. You worked it out.
This is
You
last
worked
name.
it out. Yes, you worked it out. You worked it out. You worked it out. And so there were the football championships and the school championships, you know. And I decided I would coach the football team, the school football team at Lodge Village. And the school had no money to pay a coach and so on, so they agreed. And so I had to coach the team. Now I have never played or won any football championships in my life or anything of that sort. But I knew one thing and only one thing about football. It is what Conrad Sayers had taught me. You understand? What Conrad Sayers had taught me. And the fundamental thing he said is this. Chado, he used to call me Chado. He said, Chado, football is first played with your head. You think. before anything else. Football is played with your head. You think. You think them. And so we began this journey, me and these boys. And some parents even came to the school and complained to the head teacher, he's going to kill them and they're going to die from a heart attack and all sorts of stuff. I said to them, listen to me. We are not here to participate. And we are not here for no fun and no games. We're here to win this thing and we're going to win it. It does not matter what it takes. We will win. It does not matter what it takes. We will win. It's the only championship Lord Village School has ever won. Every school we played against, the coach was a national football player. Every single school we played against. And we beat them all. We beat them all. What I'm trying to tell you. Yes, we beat them all. We beat all of them. And I was the only coach that had never played any football. You see, what I'm trying to say here is that when you explain to me the nature of your program, where you're trying to inspire Vincentians, I hope at the end of this program, whatever I might have said here would be an inspiration to someone else. You understand? That is what this is about. This is not
Yeah,
about me.
it
Go
is our
ahead. Go
main to
ahead.
get people to your story, to learn from your story. So that's one of the main that we try to do here, is to get other people to learn from your story. Because sometimes some people
Yes.
may want to sell, but for somewhere they doesn't have that motivation to go forward. But a story, coming here and telling your story, gonna give them that motivation and effort to go forward. So that's one of my aim of this story.
What teaching taught me, and I think this is important, is that the greatest teacher of all is the one who is willing to learn the most. That's what teaching taught me. I was willing to learn. I was willing to listen to the children. I was willing to listen to better teachers than myself. But more than anything else, I think that is what mattered. Is that I was able to hear. I was able to hear all the echoes around me. Not just my voice, but the echoes of everything else. And that somehow or the other made me into a better human being. But with all of that, you have to remember one thing, that Conrad says was first and foremost what? A teacher. That is what he was. And so he was this example. You understand? He was this example that I looked up to. This voice that I heard always. Say, no, chatter, this is not how you do it. And this is how you do it. This is how you do it. You know, people said I virtually worship Conrad. No, I didn't. I knew he was a man like myself, but he was a better man than every other man I've ever met. It's as simple as that. He was a better man than every other man that I've met. And so my life has always been to be as good as that man, if not better. To follow that example. And that is what we are talking about here. And so my teaching time was not long, because after that I went off to university. And you're going to be shocked to hear what I'm going to tell you now. But university was the first time that I was ever free. It's the first time in my life that I was ever free. Nobody knew me. I knew nobody. So I was not a crippled. I was not a Feeney hand man. I was not anything. I was just like every other student. It made me free. Europe made me free. You know, it made me free. In St. Vincent, I was always this crippled. I was always this, this, this person people laughed at and mocked and scorned and spat upon and beat up when I was a kid. Here now, I was free. And for the first time in my life, I could now concentrate on what my head could do. I didn't have to become a good cricketer or a good footballer because university was not about that. University, university was about this. I didn't have to know how to play dominoes or card or whatever because university was not about that. So university was my place. It was where I belonged. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying here. You understand? For the first time in my
We
life,
get it.
I was in my place. For the first time in my life, I was in my place. You know, it made me free. I was free of St. Vincent. I was free of being a crippled. I was free of everything. I was a free man for the first time in my life. And so, yeah, I got there. And again, I was a rebel, real rebel. I decided, you know what? Because I went to Russia to study. That's where I got my fundamental education in Russia. I just decided, you know what? I don't like this place. I'm going to go back home. And I closed off the whole university.
So right about now, we're having a very interesting conversation
You still
with
with
Dr. Richard Byron-Cox, and he is a professor, lecturer, the whole 9 yards. This man has so many accolades behind his name, and we try to get by some of them one by one, bit by bit. But I assume we need more than 2 hours here. My name is Molten Sears alongside CP Bork, and we're on Strictly Vinci. So, Dr. Byron-Cox, you said that you didn't grow up with your biological parents, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. How much did that play a role in you wanting to achieve or to excel?
Right. Well, I think um, it's 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 difficult to really measure how much it played a role, but it played a really, really great role. When I tell you great, I mean a really great role, because Mr. Sayers and Mr. Burke, you come from St. Vincent like myself, which is a Christian society, and in that society, we believe in the Bible and what the Bible says. And in the Bible, there is this statement: "The stone that the builder refused has become the head cornerstone." You know that, right, Mr. Says? Mr.
Absolutely.
Burke, Mr. Burke, you know that, don't you? Mr. Burke, you know that, don't you? You
yes, we
know,
do.
and
Yes,
that that
we do.
drove that drove me. That drove me. The stone that the builder refused shall be the head cornerstone. You know, and that drove me. There are three things in my life that drove me. The other two, I'll probably tell you later. I don't know. But that drove me. That drove me. The stone that the builder refused has now become the head cornerstone. You know, so that drove me. But my university, as I said, I got there and I just cursed off the whole university. And I said, no, I'm going back to St. Vincent. I don't, you know. And then there is a man, he's alive today, and you could call him and ask him. His name is Barack Jagdeo. Do you know who's Barack Jagdeo?
Sounds like a Guyanese.
He's the president, vice president of Guyana, but he's in actuality the most
Oh,
powerful
Bart
man.
Dagger. Yes, Bart
He's
Dagger.
the actuality the most powerful man in Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to my room and he said, "How can you do this for God's sake? You know, you have been given an opportunity that so many people want. Come on, man. And I just turned to him and I said, Barrett, what do they give you if you're the best student when you finish here? He said, a red diploma. I said, what's a red diploma? He says, first class honors. I said, okay, I've decided to stay. I'm going to get first class honors. I swear to God, not lying to you. I am going to get first class honors.
Wow.
And Barrett is alive today. He is the vice president of Guyana. And so said, so done. I'm going to tell you something now. In 43 years, 44 years of St. Vincent sending students to Russia, only one has returned with the first class honors. A matter of fact, only one has returned with any honors whatsoever. I would not tell you his name. I'd let you figure that out.
Dr. Byron-Cox.
Only one. In 43 and more years, only one Vincentian has gone to Russia and returned with the first class honors.
Dr. Byron-Cox.
I don't say that to praise myself. I say that to tell you this. In the same way that Conrad says was the inspiration for my aspiration, I hope that I can be the inspiration for someone's aspiration.
So, Dr. Byron-Cox, how many languages do you speak?
You know, people are always fascinated about my language ability and things like that. Let's put it this way. Competently, very competently, 5 of them. But apart from competence in terms of other languages that I can naturally talk, in other words, it might be about 10, it might be about 13, who knows? I'm not really sure. So, for example, just to give you an example, as I just said, I studied in Russia, and so I speak Russian extremely well. It is the best language I know.
Wow.
I know it better than English because I was not trained as a linguist for English language. I was trained as a linguist for Russian. So I have a degree to teach Russian at university level. I have a degree to translate Russian, and I have a degree to interpret Russian. So I am extremely competent in Russian language, right? And so, but because I know Russian, I naturally speak Bulgarian. So if somebody from Bulgaria, within 2 days, and you wonder, where did I learn it? I never learned it anyway. I just, it just comes to me, in that kind of way. And I never learned Italian. But once I'm in Italy for 2 days, the third day, you would think that I know this thing, that I study this thing someplace. No.
Because I assume you do Spanish.
Yes, yes, right. It just comes to me. It just comes to me. But competently, really competently, 5 of them for sure.
Oh.
Very competently.
What are you, German? You obviously German.
Well, yeah, we're in Germany right now. I'm at my home in Germany right now. Well, to be honest with you, I think languages come to me quite easily. Very, very easily. Languages come to me. I think I was fortunate to have gone to Russia so that my fundamental education is in a foreign language, and I can just turn to my library and fundamental books I have here in my library are not in the English language. Just to give you an example, most people don't know what the Nazi and Hitler did to Black people, right? But this book is in Spanish, as you can see, and it says the Negroes in Los Campos Nazi in the Nazi concentration camp. I never read this in English. I only read this in Spanish. And I have many other books here in Portuguese, in Russian, that I never read. A matter of fact, Plato's Republic, which is one of the most fundamental books in philosophy, I never read English once in my life.
Wow.
I've read it. I've read it in Russian and in French, but never in English. So, but again, all of this has nothing to do with talent, really. People see me as a very talented man. No, this has nothing to do with that. I think this has to do with, and I'm going to tell you that story because it's important for you to know it. And when I got to university, after the first semester, I was a straight A student. And a student came to me and said, "Oh, you're straight A and la la la." I said, "And so what?" He said, "Well, oh, the race is not for the swift, but for those who endure to the end." I said, "Oh, is that so? I shall endure." Just like that, I said. When we will finish our first degree and we were in the hall, you know, I am not lying to you. And they said, "Okay, so they started to share our degrees and so on." And then first class honors, Richard Byron-Cox. Right? So I went up and I got my degree and so on. And this student said, "Oh, let's leave. We got our degree." I said, "No, they have to give the award for the best student for 3 years, and I have won it." And he looked at me and said, "What?" I said, "Yes, I've won it." So
Hmm.
and then I said, "Oh, and the best student for 3 years, Richard Byron-Cox." Good. So I got that too. And he said, "Oh, then we can leave." I said, "No, there's the best thesis award, and I have won it." I'm not joking, I have won it. And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Yes, you can go home if you want." And, oh, third place, such and such, second place, such and such, first place, Richard Byron-Cox,
Hmm.
you know.
So,
And when we were leaving, this student said to me, "You know, you don't leave room for failure." And three people would say that to me in my life. Three people. My best friend, who's dead now, would also say that to me. "You don't leave room for failure." And I said, but he was the first person to say it to me. He said, "You don't leave room for failure." And I said, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" He said,
hmm.
"Failure, failure." And I said, "What do you mean? I don't understand." He says, "Failure, when you don't succeed." And I said, "So what does that have to do with me?" And he said, "Well, because everybody failed." I said, "Everybody failed except me. I cannot fail."
Hmm.
And he was like, "What?" I said, "I cannot fail. Everybody else failed. I cannot fail." And he misunderstood. And you both probably are now misunderstanding. I wasn't trying to say I'm right or gifted or anything of that sort. I was trying to explain something. I have no choice. This is my only road. If I fail here, I am dead.
Hmm.
I can't play sports. I don't have two good hands like everybody else. I'm not great at music or whatever. This is my only chance. I cannot fail, not because I am bright, but simply because I have no option. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Do you
So,
understand what I'm telling you?
absolutely. Very touching. Dr. Byron Cox, let me ask you about your lecture, because you lectured in Namibia, South Korea, um, University of London, Turkey.
Yes.
The list goes on to um,
Oxford and everywhere else. Yes.
Zimbabwe. You help us understand that. How, how did you do it?
Well, you see, the thing is that after I returned from university, because there's just so much in my life to unpack that when I returned from university, I was given a job at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I was advisor to the then Prime Minister was James Mitchell, and to his Foreign Minister. You know, and there was a man. His name is Hugh Phillips. He's probably still in Canada now. I don't know if he's dead, but he was George Phillips's son, and he was permanent secretary. And being the rebel I am, and so I, it wasn't an easy road. And one day he called me and he said, "Listen to me. I'm going to go upstairs and talk to the Prime Minister and to tell him to give you what you deserve. But he might not do what I say. But you mustn't worry because you're so good. Somebody's going to come here and take you away from this country. That's how good you are." Mr. Sayers and Mr. Burke, I tell you now, I worked for the United Nations for 26 and a half years. I did not apply to the UN. They gave me a job. You hear me?
Yeah, just wanted to tell the folks you work as, what was your profession there?
Right. I began first as a legal counsel and finished as the head of the capacity building and innovation office. Right. Throughout those years, I did different things. As I said, legal counsel. I also became head of the Latin American and Caribbean department. So from Mexico right down to Argentina. Right. I was in charge of all of that and so on and so forth. But I ended my career as head of its capacity building and innovations office. Right. Now, I did a PhD because I wanted to teach university. And it's easier when you have a PhD, right? So that's why I did my PhD, because I wanted to teach university. But then here comes the United Nations come calling,
Hmm.
you know? And I realized this is it. Because if I became a university teacher at UE, I only teach UE. I don't teach nobody else. But if I'm working for the UN, it gives me the chance to teach all over the world,
Well,
you know? And so that is what happened. So, as a UN expert on international law, are you an expert on sustainable development? Are you an expert on public and environmental law? And as a UN expert on environmental politics, I taught all those subjects, from Oxford downward. And that's how I became this renowned teacher at various universities across the globe. I've
mhm.
taught in every continent, and I'm proud to say that I've done that, you know. And, I'm going to tell you a secret, right? Don't let anybody know. It's just between the three of us, okay? you know, my last child is German. Mother is a German woman. And so I was with this German woman when I was given the call to go to Oxford to teach. So I got to Oxford and they had this Oxford dinner for me and, whatever, the night before my lecture. And there were 21 professors there and all of everybody, trying to impress one another and so on. And I was the only black person there. And Jesus Christ, I am not in this league. Something is wrong here. You know, I am not as good as I thought I am. And so I got back to the hotel, which they had booked for me and so on. I called my girlfriend, the German woman, and I said, "Hi." And she said, "Something is wrong." I said, "No, I'm good." She said, "No, something is wrong. What is it?" I said, "I'm good." And she said, "I know you. I know you. Something is wrong. Tell me what it is." I said, "Probably not as good as I think I am. I'm not ready for this." And she just burst out laughing. And she said, "I knew the day would come when I have to tell you this. And so I'm going to tell you now. Do you know what attracted me to you? Do you know? It's one day I'm at the UN because she works for the UN as well. And they said, this Dr. Byron-Cox is going to talk. And here you come, this polished black man in his suits and ties and everything. And then you open your mouth and you had everybody spellbound. And I decided, I am going to be with that man.
Hmm.
I swear to you, I'm not lying. She said, the problem is you want to be Oxford. Don't be Oxford, just be Richard. Just go there and talk. Just be Richard. Just go there and talk. That's all you have to do.
Dr. Cox,
Go
are
and
you
talk.
using a wireless?
You know, I delivered my lecture, and the professor invited me. He said, Professor, may I ask you the first question? I said, well, I'm not a professor, I'm just doctor. He said, you're more than a professor, we know this. Anyway, when would you be willing to come back in 2 weeks to give us a lecture on this subject?
Wow.
You know, seriously, that is what happened. Say, would you be willing to come back in 2 weeks and give us a lecture on this subject? You know,
So there you are. People are trying to get into Oxford. Most of us would love to get into Oxford as a student, and
I
there
went
you are as a
as
lecturer.
a teacher. Yes, I went as a teacher.
Wow, that's impressive.
I
So
went as a teacher.
yeah, so I'm lost because, like you said, you've been to every continent. Like you said, when you went to Korea, what language was your lecturer in?
English. It wasn't
English.
in Korean. I do not speak Korean.
Okay.
It's in
That's what I
English.
was wondering.
No,
And places
it
like
wasn't.
Namibia, Turkey. So most of your lectures are delivered in.
Most of my lectures are in English. Yes.
Oh. And what kind of lecture do you give, or what would you say is your most
Well, I give
meaningful
lectures in four basic areas. I
lecture?
give lectures in public international law. I
Mhm.
give lectures in environmental law, international environmental law. I give lectures in international environmental politics, not
Mhm.
just the law, but the politics. And I give general lectures on environmental politics on international relations. Those are the four areas I deal with.
Mhm. What was your favorite place to deliver a lecture?
Ah, my favorite place. I think the University of Cologne. Yes, I think the University of Cologne. I love lecturing at the University of Cologne. I don't know why, because
Where is that though?
the University of Cologne is not too far from my house. It's
Oh,
on a
it's
train. It's 25 minutes from my house. So probably that's one of the reasons as well. But no, but they had asked me. I sit on their board of environmental experts. I'm the
Mhm.
only foreigner who have given such an honor and such an opportunity. So I think, yeah, that is my favorite place to lecture. But in terms um of of communion with the students, I think Oxford and Cologne, because in Oxford, um, my lectures are usually for the lecture and the discussion is 1 hour and a half, and every time I go to Oxford, 4 or 5 hours after, I'm still in some cafe or something talking to the students.
That was what I was thinking.
You
You
know, so
there's always
yeah,
somebody there you can
yeah,
relate to.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so that is but to be honest, I love to lecture. I love to be at universities. I love to talk to students because and brilliant students, those who because I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Sayers, and I don't want you to see this as arrogance. I
Mhm.
want you to measure this for what it really is. Listen to me. If anybody if anybody in this world is willing to listen to you for 3 minutes, never waste their time.
True.
Don't ever forget that. Most people think you think, and I think many of us think that people listen to us. No. Most people listen to us to question us, to prove that they're brighter than us, to dispute us. You understand what I'm saying? To
Mhm.
demonstrate to the world that what we are saying is foolishness,
Mhm.
right? Anytime anybody truly listens to you, what that person is doing is trying to understand what you're saying, not trying to dispute you. not trying to agree with you, not trying to disagree with you. None of those things. So anytime any person is willing to listen to you, honestly listen to you for 3 minutes, never waste their time. Don't forget that.
Wow, that is deep.
Don't forget that. So I went to university and it was a hard time for me. I all of my education, all of my university education was scholarships. But you see, my problem, I had two problems. What was the first one? The first one is that I went to university only to learn. So when everybody would do a summer job and so on, because of my hand problem and so on, I didn't do any summer job. So I was always poor. I was desperately poor. you know,
But
that was my first problem.
it turns out I mean, you took it and turned it into positive because I
You
guess
know?
you use that energy to focus
Right.
on studies, right?
Yes, I was desperate, people. And the second thing is that the money that they gave me for my scholarship, guess what I did with it? I bought books.
Mm.
I did not think about food. I think about buying books. So I had the most effective law library outside of the law library itself.
Mm.
For any
Wow.
student, I had the best law library. I had a law library of 4,000 books. And I read every single one of them because I paid money for them. So when I returned home from university, everybody thought I had AIDS because I was starving to death. I'm not joking, it's not a joke, Mr. Sayers. I'm very, very serious. I was like, Jesus has AIDS because the money that they gave me, all I did with that money was buy books.
Mm.
That's all I did. Buy books and read them all.
Mm.
So my years at university, I was a rebel. I was really, and with all this rebellion that was in me, I became the president of the Guild of Undergraduates. I was
Mm.
elected president, and I fought the university authorities. Of course, they threatened to throw me out a couple of times,
Mm.
right? And but I never relented. I never relented. And I was awarded scholarships because of my excellence at school. So,
Mm.
right up to my PhD and my postgraduate degrees after PhD, because I went to diplomatic school and so on, was all free. I didn't have to pay a cent.
Mm.
This is not because of brilliance. This is because I was determined. I was very, very determined. I was an extremely determined human being. I'm going to tell you a couple of things now that, as I said, Mr. Sayers, I do not want you or anyone else to pity me.
Mm.
I have it all. You know, I this is not about this. I want to inspire somebody. I want somebody to understand what I'm saying. When I went to Russia, I was so poor that I didn't have winter shoes. And so in winter, when I got home, my socks would be full of blood. And when you press my foot like this, it would break open and blood would come out. There was one other Vincentian there, and he said no human being should suffer so much.
Mm.
Go home. And I refuse. You hear me? I'm not joking.
Mm.
This is a fact. And he's a living man. He's a practicing lawyer today, and he will testify that this is true. When you did my foot like this, it would burst open and blood would pour out. My socks, every time I came from school every day, was full of blood.
So what would you have to say to someone who would say, ah, you were just lucky to get by and stuff like that? Tell us, like, how you managed to get by.
No, you know, there's something about you agreeing to interview me and have me on your show that I felt that I needed to be here because there's a purpose for me to serve. Serve, serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't absolutely sure what that was until now.
Mm-hmm.
In answering your question, do you know that Bob Marley has a song called Jah Will Be Waiting There? Have you ever heard it?
If you sing it, the melody might come to my head.
Jah would be waiting there,
Yeah, yes, yes.
lost and found. You know that song?
Mm-hmm.
In the second verse, he says this: many a times I sit and wonder why this race is so very hard to run.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to my soul, take a rest. The battle would be won. Like a ship tossed and driven, battled by the angry seas. Any day now, they're going to let you down. But remember that He would be there and He would see you through. Ain't it good to know that Jah would be waiting there?
Mm-hmm.
One day I was so hungry because I hadn't eaten for 3 weeks that I know I had to get home. And by the time I got home and opened my door and closed it, I collapsed on the floor, hit my head,
Oh.
you know. And when I woke up, it was totally dark. And I had a Sanyo recorder. And I stretched my hand out and I felt for the buttons and I pressed the play button. And that second verse came. Many a times I sit and wonder why. This race is so very hard to run. But I say to my soul, take a rest. The battle will be won. Like a ship tossed and driven, battled by the angry seas. Any day now they're gonna let you down. But remember that He will be there and He would see you through. Ain't it good to know that Jah will be waiting there? What does it mean there? No. Luck has its place. There's no if and buts about that. But more so when you're gambling. I have never gambled in my life.
Hmm.
You understand? But luck has its place. More so when you're gambling. I have never gambled in my life. Never once.
Wow.
That's the first thing. Secondly, there is no way in my mind that if you want to be better, that you is going to achieve this without some sort of commitment, some sort of hard work, some sort of sacrifice. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Every black man came off, every black man in the Americas, or the majority of black men in the Americas, we came off the slave plantation. In one way or the other, that's just the
One
fact
way or
of
the other, there's a connection.
You understand? That's just the fact of the matter. And so we have got to be committed. But let's deal with me personally, because that's the question. Oh, you were lucky. You just, you know, I have never drifted in my life. I have sailed. I don't know if you know the difference. Let me explain it. You see, drift, wherever you end up, depends on the winds. Sail is when you command the ship. I am the commander of my life. You understand? Of course, Mr. Says, there would be storms and hurricanes that you have no control over, but they don't come every day. Your life is every day. Do you understand?
Absolutely.
Your life is every day. The storms don't come every day. So there are those days when you have no control. You have this girlfriend, you like she and so on, and she decides for both you and Mr. X.
Hmm.
You have control over that.
True.
You understand what I'm saying? But your girlfriend ain't going to boot you every day. And if she boot you today, you left she and you find another girlfriend.
Oh, man. Take your
You
boot like a big man.
But you see, the point I am making that the storms are not every day, but your life is every day. You understand? And so it's not every day that you can sail. There's sometimes when you have to drift a little bit because the weather is against you. But generally, you have to sail your ship. Do you agree?
Totally agree.
I rest my case.
You're listening to Strictly Vinci on Vinci Internet Radio. Moulton says alongside CP Burke, and CP Burke will rejoin us shortly after some technical difficulties from Studio 1. I'm in Studio 2. And we're having a conversation with Dr. Richard Byron-Cox. And Dr. Byron-Cox, let's dive into your writing and stuff like that. I saw that during the research that you've been writing poetry from a very tender age.
Mm-hmm. Yes. If you remember, Mr. Sayers, I told you several things. And the first of these, which has to do with my writing, is that I told you that at the age of 8, I went to this gospel meeting in the park. And the preacher was so boring, I went and I laid down on the grass and I looked up. And somehow or the other, I connected to the universe, and I don't know how to put this because words not enough. And then I went home, and I swear to you, Mr. Sayers, I sat down and I started to think about this universe. And for the first time in my life, I realized that there was a part of me called my brain, a thinking part of me, an existing part of me that I had to connect with. And because of my childhood, I was very, very afraid of darkness, very afraid. And well, you're younger than me, so you probably don't know about these things. But Vincentian people like this idea of always telling you a Jumbie story when you're small. You know what I mean? But you meet Jumbie wrong corner and all kind of
I'm not so young. I got some of it.
yeah.
I'm probably the last generation.
Yes, this Jumbie story business. And,
Yes.
and I can tell you these things used to make me so frightened. So frightened that I was afraid of darkness. And I remember I was 8 years old when boy got knocked down and he died. And to this day, I think it was a mistake that they forced all the children to go to that funeral. And I went. And we had to look at this child in this open coffin. And Mr. Sayers, that thing terrorized me as a human being, as a child, And I went home that evening. I was 8 years old. I'll never forget it. And I didn't write it down anywhere because I didn't need to write it down. This just came to me. I'm going to say it now. This is the first poem I ever remember I wrote. I never truly like the night because it fills me up with fright. And there are always these things there that fill me up with so much fear. And sometimes when I'm in my bed, I pull the sheet above my head because I'm afraid that I would see a zombie standing next to me. I wrote that when I was 8 years old.
8 years old. Wow.
And I've never forgotten it.
Wow. So do you have a book published with poetries or just
No. No. And And then that amazes everybody then.
Why is it that you never publish a book with poetry? Because I'll tell you why I said that. At the beginning of the interview, your way of speech sounded more poetic than
Yeah.
than ever. And I was like, okay, when this man said that he's not a Shakespeare, he's not a this, he's not a that, he is Dr. Richard Byron-Cox. And I admire you for wanting to just keep your own identity, or so to speak, create your own brand
Yeah.
of your style.
Yeah.
And I thought that when I read that you at 8 years old you wrote your first poem, I thought that you have a book with poetry as well, because I myself, when I was very young, I wanted to have a book called The Poetry House. That,
Oh,
that was that was my dream book. I don't know.
okay.
Maybe it's not too late. Maybe it's not too late. One day I might,
And no,
because
it's never too
I was
late.
a deep lover of
It's never
poetry.
too late.
So
It's
yeah.
never too late. No, when I wrote, and that's why I told you there are several things I told you about my childhood which would affect my life in the future. When I wrote that, because I was mocked and treated with so much disdain and contempt and scorn and whatever else, I kept these things to myself. I was afraid to publish anything. I was afraid to let people know that I know poetry, that I can write poetry. You know,
Mhm.
so nobody knew. Nobody knew. And
I-
and
I-
then when I was 17 years old, a lady came from South Africa and to promote the struggle against Mandela. And I had written a poem called Data Bodong in South Africa. You understand? Yes. Data Bodong in South Africa where black people are suffer. Black can't go school, them can't see doctor. White one turn black fool so we could suffer forever. You know, I had written that. And there's a man, his name is Arthur Bob. I don't know if you know who's Arthur Bob,
but
right? But Arthur Bob was part of something called Drags, right? Dynamic Rhythm and Art Group in Solidarity. Drags. Drags was a group formed by the great Calypsonian Sully, the Vincentian Calypsonian Sully. You
mhm.
understand? And Bob and others. And they had heard Data go down in South Africa and they loved it. And so when this woman came and so on, they said, you know, Cox should come and do that poem. And I went there and it turned up the place. Data go down in South Africa where black people are suffer. It turned up the place.
Oh,
And there was a lady who did a program for children on the radio. At that time, we only had what is now NBC, but at that time it was called 705.
705.
Yes, you know? And she came over and she said, could you come and do one of your stories for me on the radio? Now, I was a stupid 17-year-old boy.
Or shy.
No, instead of me asking the woman, what story are you talking about? My thing was, how did you know I write stories? She said anybody who could write poetry like that must be able to write stories. And so I agreed. And I have a story which would probably be published next day because I have so much work, Mr. Says, so much to say. But anyway, the story is called The Christmas Recitation. And I went there and I was 17. So I was scared, like you cannot imagine, you know? And I went into the recording studio and she had brought the children. There were about 40 of them.
Oh,
I stood up there. I was so scared. Mr. Says, I was so scared that I closed my eyes and I began my story, the Christmas recitation. you know. And then about 20 minutes later, I opened my eyes. And the whole studio, everybody. At that time, the chief engineer at 705 was a man named Leslie Mackey,
Mm-hmm.
right? I saw Leslie Mackey in the recording side, paralyzed everybody, the children, everybody was paralyzed. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe it.
Oh.
You know, I couldn't believe it. And when I was finished, a matter of fact, there's a story to this. There's a romantic story. You want to hear the romantic part?
Yeah, man.
All right, I'll tell you the romantic part. I'll tell you the romantic part. So, and I, I said this story, and then that was it. And Boxing Day, I was going up to the parking shops to watch a football match. And this young woman, my first daughter's mother, right? She was coming from church, all dressed up in her church, whatever. And she said, "How did the story end?" And I said, "What?" She said, "The story. So how did it end?" I said, "What are you talking about?" Because I didn't talk to this woman before. She said, "You, Richard Byron-Cox." I said, "Yes, so what?" "And you told the story, the Christmas visitation." And I said, "Yes, so what?" She said, "How did it end?" I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Christmas Day, they only played one half, and everybody has to wait until not Boxing Day, New Year's Day to hear the other half. So tell me what then." I said, "Well, you'd have to wait like everybody else." That's how I got to know my first daughter's mother.
Wow.
That's my that's how my first daughter is in the world today.
Wow.
You know,
That's
and everybody who met me is like, "How did you write that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's just you know." So that's how my writing of stories began because my poetry, um, I Mr. Sayers, take it from me. When you are a child, when you're a young man, and nobody believes in you, and you don't have the strength to believe in yourself, it can destroy you.
mhm.
I was lucky enough, somehow, I was smart enough to know everybody might be concerned with my flaws. I must be concerned with my essence. I hope you heard what I just said. Everybody might be concerned with my flaws. FLAWS. But I must be concerned with my essence.
So, in other words, you are responsible for your destiny.
Yes. They will not shape me. I will shape myself. And
I'm
so
glad.
that's how my writing began.
I'm glad you said that. I'm gonna get back to your book, but I must share this little um, quote or a little story. Right?
Hmm.
The story is told about two brothers, identical twins. Their father was an alcoholic. One, he said, "My father was an alcoholic, so you can't blame me for drinking. I have to drink. I have to be like my father." And the other one said, "My father was an alcoholic. I don't want to be like him." And they were identical twins. So that's just a little bit to share
Yeah,
on
yeah,
you have control over your own destiny.
yeah, yeah, yes.
Sometimes we can sit back and make a lot of excuses about stuff or who we are or where we came from and stuff like that. But it's to go out there. It's an open world. Go out there and achieve something, like you said, especially intellectually, because nobody can take intellect from you. No one
Yeah.
can steal that from you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it gives you a lot of respect to when people look at you intellectually. Like you said, they may laugh at the beginning, but in the end, um, the outcome reward would be great. And I like what you said, and I'll take that into consideration. Really, if someone can listen to you for 3 minutes, don't
Never,
waste time.
never waste their time.
Mhm. Tell me about the books now. How many books did you write?
Okay, now.
I know you just launched one in New York City last month, August, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, but we'll come to that. Now, firstly, Mr. Sayers, you must understand something, that writing is an art, and you would only pursue it if you love it. You have a genuine love, a deep love for it. It's like how you pursue a girl who you love, you know.
Mhm.
Whether she's pretty, I don't know, but why you pursue her, but you pursue her, right? The same thing with writing. That's the first thing. Now, most of my writings, until recently, were just political writings, right? I've written thousands of essays in newspapers, the Vincentian, the Searchlight, and so on, okay? And other journals around the world. I've written chapters for legal books and so on, University of Colonials, right? But I resigned from the United Nations 2 years ago just to pursue writing of literature. That's all. I left this business of the United Nations, of being an international diplomat and civil servant, only to pursue writing of literature books. Why did I do that? As a matter of fact, when I announced to my team, because I had a staff of 20 people, I was the boss, and paid very well for what I'm doing. And they said, "Are you crazy, sir? Have you lost? What is wrong? Have you lost?" My executive assistant said, who's very close to me, a French woman. When I say close, I mean professionally, nothing else, right? And said, "Sir, have you lost your mind? You leave all this money and just..." I'm like, I've had enough. But that's not the reason I'm leaving. I'm leaving because I have something to say. And she said, "Yes, you've always had something to say. That's why you're here. And you can say it across universities across the world. Nobody stops you. You're the boss. Nobody tells you anything."
Mhm.
Yeah, I said, but at the end of the day, I still work for the United Nations. I don't work for me. So I have to leave. And so that's when I decided to leave. But my literature began when I was 8 years old, as an 8-year-old boy, as an 8-year-old child. And so I wrote all these poems, hundreds of poems, which are all lost now, you know. And listen this. It's very interesting. A few years ago, a young woman came to the UN as an intern, as a lawyer. By that time, I had left the legal work that I was doing for the UN. I was managing programs. But her supervisor said to her, "The best lawyer I know in this organization is Richard Byron-Cox. Go up and see him." And this young woman came and she said, "I know you." And I said, "No, you don't." And she said, "Yes, I know you." I said, "No, you don't. You don't know. You don't know anything about me." And she said, "I know you." I said, "Anyway, that's not the important thing, young woman. How can I help you?" Still, my supervisor say you're the best lawyer. I said, well, who's your supervisor? And she said, her name is Veronique Zidi. She said, Madame Veronique Zidi, which is a French woman. I said, oh, Veronique? Well, uh, I have helped Veronique, so that's why she probably says that. I am not any good lawyer. And she said, no, she would not tell me that. I said, anyway, what do you want? And so on. And so 2 days later, the young woman came up and said to me, I don't know you. I know your work. I said, oh, that might be the case, but tell me. And she said, because when I did my undergraduate degree, your work was recommended reading. That's why I know you. I said, okay, fine, I can understand. And so she went down to her supervisor and said, his work is recommended reading. That's how I know him. So she calls me up, the supervisor calls me up and said, Richard, I didn't know that you write things for a lot of things. I say, yeah, that's not anything. Say, but with your gift, you must be able to write other things. It was Christmas time. I say, yes, I write other things. She's like, other things like what? It's like, why not write poetry? Just send me something, let me read it. I just want to know. So I sent her, it's called The Gift, a poem of mine, The Gift. And when she read it, she said, oh, Jesus, Richard, can I send this? I want to put this in every card, my Christmas cards for everybody. I said, on one condition that you said this, the copyright belongs to Richard Byron-Cox. That's it. She said, sure. You know, and so that was it. And then she said, but writing the same thing that happened to me when I was 17 years old. She said, anybody who could write poetry like this must be able to write stories. And I said, yes, I do write. And so I sent her something called When Japhet Met Lucifer. And when she read it, the next day, she called me, Richard, you have to publish this. And I said, her name is Veronique Zidi, as I told you. You have to publish this. I said, what sort of nonsense? I just wrote this because, no, you have to publish it. You have to publish this, right? But send me something else. And then I sent her Mama Stairs. And she told me, I have it. It is written in Mama Stairs. You can look it up. She woke up her daughter in the middle of the night and said, I have to tell you a story. She said, I cried so much. You must have suffered so much as a child to write something like this. You have to publish this book. So that's how Mama's Days was published, to be honest with you, you know. And there's a woman named Angela Popignani. She's from Sweden. And when she bought the book, she called me up and said, I'd like to go to, could you come to coffee with me? I know you don't do these things, but could you come? And I said, sure. Come. And she said, I owe you an apology for what my people have done to you. I said, no, I just wrote. And she said, you know what I did? I woke my son up in the middle of the night. And I said, I have to tell you this. I have to tell you this story. And this is a colleague of mine. So this is where this whole thing began. And then I decided, look, I've had enough of this. I have a little daughter, a German daughter. And so that helped me up at the UN for a little bit because you have to take care of your children, you have to have enough money, You don't want people to lock you up and things like that, right? Anyway, um, so and then 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I decided I'm leaving the UN. Just right. And so Mama Stairs was out there, and then I wrote this fabulous book called The Story of Pauline Bramble, and that has been the literature work that I've been doing so far. If God allows and strength allows, then there's so much more. But there's something that I have already give you a little taste of it. You don't know, but there's something. There's something. And that's all I would say. There's something. If you push me, then I might tell you. But yeah, you know, yeah.
how, how many published books do you have right now?
In terms of published books, in terms of literature, only two. In terms of literature, not politics, not things like that. Just literature, because
Right,
that's what I'm focused on now. Literature too.
right, right. And where do you think we can find them, and how
Right.
much for?
You just have to go to Amazon and put my
Uh-huh.
name in and put books, and you can buy them.
What are the names, for curiosity?
Right. So Well Mama Stays in Vain
Mhm.
and The Story of Berlin Bramble Book One and Spring Blossom and Young Turns. So those are the two major works. But uh can I do something now?
Of course.
And could you listen carefully, please?
Hmm.
Listen carefully.
Hmm.
Battle, battle the currents of the turbulent seas. Walk the challenging hills without murmur. Drink from the streams so that your tears are refilled. Hide in the valley of calm and always keep climbing to the mountain tops. For living was never meant to be a station, even a comfortable one. No, living is in fact a continuous journey through seasons and places that make time meaningful. I would let you make what you want of that. Living. And there's a reason I told you that. Mr. Says, could you tell me, please, have you ever seen an ugly flower? With a buttercup or rose or whatever. Have you ever seen an ugly flower?
You want me to answer that?
Yes. I'd like you to. Have you ever seen an ugly flower, Mr. Rose?
Based on the program, I'll have to be diplomatic.
No, I just want you to tell me honestly. Have you look around me here are flowers. It's just above me. This is a real thing. This is not this
Mhm,
is a real orchid. That flower. I have
mhm,
one right here. I can turn it around. I hope you can see it. I don't know. These are real flowers that you're seeing. Real. They're
mhm,
not artificial flowers. They're real.
mhm.
Have you ever seen an ugly flower in your life? I'll
No,
answer for you. No.
no.
Exactly. No. But do you know that some flowers are poisonous and if you eat them, they will kill you?
Yes.
So there's no ugly flower, but some are poisonous and so fatal to you.
Mhm.
Isn't that true?
That is true.
Mr. Says,
Mhm.
listen to me very carefully. Listen, please listen. You know, birth has happened to you. Did you have anything to do with your birth? Did you have
Abs-
any?
Absolutely nothing.
Did you decide that you're going to be born and
No,
what date and what time?
no.
And did you decide that you're going to be black when you were born and that you're going to be this tall and this heavy and this? Did you decide any of that?
Absolutely not.
So birth happened to you, right?
Right.
Do you agree? Birth happened to you,
Totally agree.
right? Right. And death is going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen to you.
Going to happen.
You can kill yourself if you want, but it's still going to happen to
Right.
you. Am I right? Am I right, Mr. Says?
You're totally correct. 100%.
So if I'm right, then life is between when you were born and when you're going to die. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Says, are you going to allow life to happen to you, or are you going to live life? I want you to think seriously about what I'm saying to you. Are you going to allow life to happen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because birth happened to you, whether you like it or not, it happened to you. You did not have anything to do with it, Mr. Says. It
True.
happened to you.
And death gonna happen to you.
And death is going to happen to you. Are you going to
Mm-hmm.
allow life to happen to you, or are you going to live life? Which is it you're going to do? You must
Mm-hmm.
decide this tonight. Now, Mr. Says, now, tonight, at this moment, when you're talking to Richard Byron-Cox. Is
Sure.
life going to happen to you? Just happen to you? Or are you going to live it? What is it you're going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Says, on a boat, as the captain, you can allow it to drift or you can sail it. Which is it you're going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Which is it you're going to do?
Gotta
You're going to
sail it.
allow it to drift or
Gotta sail it.
you're going to sail it? Which is it you're going to do, Mr. Says? Which is it you're going to do?
Going to sail it.
Rest my case.
Well, Dr. Byron-Cox, is there any project you're working on that you like to tell us about? And I just want you to tell the folks where they can follow you. I use the various social media and stuff like that.
Okay. So I have a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You have a lot of secret, you know. By the way, before you go, how many kids you have?
4 kids, 4 children.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Sound like a lot more than you're talking about. But
I
four,
know.
you know. Four, let's keep it at 4. You know, is that right?
No. I only have 4 children.
What do you do about 4, right?
I only have 4 children. 4 children.
Okay.
I have a beautiful secret. I shared a little bit of it with you, but you didn't pick it up. You would pick it up. But I can be followed on. You just go to Facebook, and from there you get everything else. Right? Richard Byron-Cox. You pump my name in, and you'll find everything else there. But I have a great secret. You didn't force me to release it, so I will
No,
not release it.
I didn't pick up on it, but I'm waiting for you to tell me.
No, I'm not going to tell you. But I want to tell St. Vincent and the Grenadines, if you allow 4 things. Firstly, what we have to understand is this: that Vincentians are people from a small nation, but we've done great things, and we continue to do great things. We have to believe in ourselves. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say to Vincent is that looking at the examples that we've had ahead of us, um, Hugh Mulzac, okay, um, our national hero, Joseph Chatouille, right? Um, most people might not want to appreciate the fact that St. Vincent and the Grenadines produce great things, such as our route is the best in the world, and most people don't know that. It's true. And we have got to believe in ourselves. But outside of that, if we work together as a nation together, regardless of our differences. So you have people like yourself and others who are doing great things for St. Vincent. If we all want to do that for our nation, we can make it better. And finally, we must remember that the only place that we can truly call home, everywhere else, we are somebody else. In St. Vincent, we are at home. And so, home is where the heart is. And we must always be prepared to share our heart with St. Vincent. And finally, I want to really thank you and Mr. Chippy Burke. I hope you'd have me on again because there's a secret which I want to share on your program first.
So you're not telling me part of the secret?
Not tonight. Not tonight. Not tonight, mister. But I'd love to do that. And I hope that I've finally, because you've given me such a great honor, I hope I've added to your program.
Absolutely.
I hope that you found it useful, entertaining, special, and above all, serving the purpose of your radio station. Give Mr. Burke my best regards and thanks.
He's listening right now. I found it to be very inspiring, motivated as well. And I'll share something with you. Like when we started this program, we decided we want to go clean. Anybody who comes on an interview, we don't want to drill you about nasty things or dirty things to get views and stuff like that. We want to build a library, build an archive where people can go in there and sit back, watch a nice family interview and get something from it. When I started the YouTube channel, it was around the same time when we were doing the interviews, and my goal was I used to look at people with 200-300 subscribers and go like, wow, if I can get 50 people, when I reached my first 50 subscribers, I was so happy because the 50 subscribers, they were not my friends. So it's not like I went and asked people to subscribe. It was people who found the channel, liked it, and they subscribed to it. So when I saw that, that was like more encouragement. I mean, I haven't hit my goal of 1,000 subscribers because of the nature of the contents. They're not gossip. They're not dramatic.
From tonight, the aim is 10,000 first. From tonight.
Yes, of course.
I'm deadly serious enough, and I'll help you to achieve it.
I am serious because when I saw that
tonight, the goal is 10,000, we're gonna do it.
10,000 subscribers. When I saw that, I go like, wow, okay, I have 500 something subscribers, and I know 400, and I know 400, they're not my friends, they're people who I don't even know. So it's encouraging. So when you said if someone can listen to you for 3 minutes, don't waste your time, it kind of resonates with what we're trying to achieve here. So you have inspired us with your story, and I know others are going to be inspired as well. And we always say here, everyone who comes on to our program, your family, you have a project, you want to talk about something, we have lots of time that we can fit you into any one of our programs. So feel free to hit me up too if you want to come on, whether you want to come on and chit chat and stuff like that. That's fine. Whether you want to come on and talk about life outside of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because some people think that it's also better roses living outside of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And especially Vincentians back home, they're not aware of the privilege they have that we don't, the things we have to go through overseas, stuff like that. So, okay. That's why I said I want
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Would it be okay with you if I can arrange for you to speak to a teacher and for that teacher to say what that teacher think are the problems of teaching in St. Vincent and how we can fix some of the problems? But
of course, absolutely.
In the primary and secondary school system, what do you think?
Would that
interest to you?
Of course, we welcome Okay, so here we interview everybody: authors,
No, but this is a serious teacher who's committed to the country, who
Oh,
wants
look,
to help, and I
look,
think
look.
this teacher voice should be heard.
Dr. Byron-Cox.
If I can arrange this, will you agree to interview this person?
Dr. Byron-Cox, if you look on the YouTube channel, we don't discriminate. We just go with, if someone can come on and be of an influence to anybody
This is going to be authentic. This is going to be somebody that you would really want to talk to.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
All right. I'd arrange it and get back to you. I'd arrange it and I'll get back to you.
Yes, and not just a teacher, anybody you know who you think is fit for the program, authors, writers, artists, doctors.
And we're going to get this 10,000. I promise you we're going to get it.
All right. I'll hold you accountable for it.
I promise you we're going to get this 10,000.
I'll hold you accountable for it.
I promise you that we're going to get it. I promise you.
And Dr. Byron-Cox, also, yes, we do have on the Vince Internet Radio website, we do have a book club. So I will also add you. And that's what I want to find.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah. So
I want you and I to talk outside of the radio program, because I think I can assist you and you can assist me, and we can make this thing great. Yes. I can assist you. I know I can.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. But I'm going to arrange with this teacher. This is the fundamental teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And who would explain some of the problems, not all, because nobody knows everything.
Right.
But some fundamental problems that we need to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Then I'll talk to the teacher and I'll get back to you. All right?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. It was great having it.
Yes, on behalf of CP Burke, Moulton says, saying thank you again for taking the time out.
The thanks, I owe you.
Yeah, and don't worry, if your folks miss this, in a few days the YouTube will be ready. So
all right, thank you.
And we'll link up. So
all right,
all in all,
have a great
week. Thanks again.
All right, blessings.
All right.